Welcome to the Functioning Griefster, a podcast about grief, love, and the legacy those we've lost still leave behind. I'm Alexandra Spencer, a sports and holistic therapist and a grieving mom to my son Declan, my best friend, my sunshine, my soulmate. Each week I sit down in the back of Dec's van with someone from the club no one ever wants to join. We cry, we laugh, we swear, and we honour their stories, uncovering the powerful bonds that even death just cannot break. There's no script, no rules, just honesty, heart, and a lot of courage. This podcast is part of my one-woman mission to challenge the taboo around grief, especially when someone dies too soon. I don't believe their name should be buried with them. Their voices still echo through us. So if you've ever felt like you were thrown into a cold, dark ocean with no rescue ring in sight, this is the place for you. So grab your life jacket, you're not alone. Right, so hello, welcome to the Functioning Griefster, and today I'm joined by Amanda, who is the mom of Olly Stephens, who you might remember all the headlines that went on 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Today's episode does come with a warning because we will be discussing gang culture and how they can groom teenagers, and also talking about the knife crime that actually took Olly's life. So thank you for coming on the podcast to discuss this topic that needs to be awareness raised around knife crime. But this isn't just a topic, this is your life, and this is your story and your son Olly.
That's it.
So I think for me, and probably quite a lot of the listeners, we feel like we've got an insight into Olly because of the documentaries you've done. But I want to hear in your words, because the bond that you have with Olly is unique, and I want to hear it from you who Olly is.
He was just larger than life. He really filled every moment with whatever he was into at that time, and it kept changing all of the time. Any spare time he had beyond being on his Xbox or being on his bike out here pulling wheelies, he watched films, he baked, he cooked, he loved
baking, did
he? He absolutely did. Yeah. But he'd always come at, just say, "Oh, Mum, I want to make brownies," and then we'd look in the cupboard. There'd be none of the ingredients. But there was something about Olly that it was infectious almost. His want to do something. You found yourself in the car, going up the shop, buying the ingredients so he could make them. He just did things in such a sort of, I suppose, joyful way that you wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. I think I can remember all the things that he would have done, and I feel like that there's bits of things that were happening to him that meant that he changed, really. And that makes me ever so sad, because he had been such a joyful little boy, and then in that transition to go to secondary school, he started really worrying about being bullied. And at the same time, we now know an older boy threatened him with a gang elder and said, "You need protection." And Olly took it all very literally, because another thing that's important to know about Olly is that in that transition, it took 14 months for us to get a diagnosis for Olly of autism spectrum.
Because I think that is key, isn't it? That Olly's autism actually made him very vulnerable, which these gangs thrive upon. It's a lot easier to groom someone like that. So let's go back to before the diagnosis, before the gangs got involved with Olly. This little boy that was at primary school, has an older sister.
Yes. always lived in this house and this neighbourhood.
Yeah.
So he'd have grown up with, I suppose, people that he'd known all of his life, whether he was at school with them, whether he was at the childminder with them. For all of our friends and neighbours in this area, they knew Ollie as we brought him back from the hospital.
Yeah.
So he was very much known, and I think in his personality, he was either filming things, recording things. He did love technology, and I think anything where he was connecting with other people in sharing what he could create, he loved doing that as well. He loved fashion, he loved getting his hair cut, and I can remember my friend being devastated at the point that he said, "Oh, I can't go there anymore, I'm going to have to go to a barber's." Because it was almost, he saw the next stage, you see, he had to go to the barber.
Yeah.
But he was always changing his hairstyle, and the last style he had was a perm, which actually he'd begged for years to get a perm. We were like, "Too young, you're too young, Ollie." It really suited him.
Because I think, like, we're a similar age, and in the 90s, we had perms.
Yes, disastrous in my case.
And then it just it's gone full circle, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Hairstyles, fashion.
Yeah.
It's quite nice now to see some of those 90s fashions come back.
And you saying about sort of like being this sort of similar age and growing up and things, Ollie's music taste was very eclectic because he'd always listened to the things that me and his dad listened to. So it's nice now because I can listen to the sort of music I like but think of Ollie as well. And it wasn't really until he passed that we came across his playlist and we were just really like, "Oh my gosh, he liked that as well."
What song on his playlist that is the influence of you and his dad was the biggest, like, "Oh my goodness, he listened to that"?
I think it's got to be Oasis Wonderwall, actually.
Oh my gosh, do you know what? I remember, the first lockdown,
Yes.
the one everyone remembers as the heat wave. Deck and I would sit out in the garden listening to my old Oasis albums.
There we go.
And I've got to admit, and I don't know how you felt about this, but when Oasis got back together and released the tour dates, it broke my heart because I know if Deck had been here, we would have gone together and he would have loved it just as much as I would have done.
Yeah. And you saying that's exactly what Ollie's dad, Stuart, does because he loves his music and it's half, he loves going to seeing the bands that he knows that they both loved, but it breaks his heart at the same time. But he always says he feels like Ollie's with him and he picks up on the signs, and you probably feel those signs and see those signs as well, that you know that they're with you. So it's hard, isn't it? So many things have become bittersweet.
Yes, and that's such a common phrase I use, is it's bittersweet.
It is, it's really hard. But I think where we started to see him changing was in this worry of the transition. He also started to say he felt different, and that was hard. So
is this the transition between primary and secondary school? Because, like, I know, back in the 80s, going from primary school to secondary school is huge.
Yeah, it is such a big step.
Because you go from being like the oldest in primary school to the youngest in secondary school. And obviously, Ollie already has an older sister in secondary school, so he's getting a bit of a glimpse as to what it's like.
Yes.
And is that how you first started seeing the signs and symptoms that Ollie was in fact autistic?
It was funny because I think he was very good at masking, but he did start to say he felt different, and we flagged it to his teacher, and they said that they couldn't really see that because I think he was coping, but the reason he could cope at primary school was because there was very little change.
Yes, yeah.
Same children in his class for 7 odd years, same teacher all year and the same TA, and also the TA always helped him because he would be set his work and he'd say, "I don't know what to do," because part of his diagnosis showed that he struggled with remembering his listening skills and his retention, so his working memory, the processing was slower. So all he needed was somebody to remind him to say, oh, what you need to do first is, and then he'd be off with a bit of help. But the minute you start at secondary school, there isn't that TA, there isn't that support. And he didn't want to put his hand up and say, I didn't understand, I didn't.
So you said it's different classmates for each topic, different teachers.
And that was too overwhelming for him.
If you are neurodiverse, that's scary.
He absolutely hated it. And it started really the first day with, he was picked up on the way he'd spoken to his head of year. He was speaking very factually, but to her it was rude. But I had we'd had as a family these golden years of primary school where everyone, all of the teachers there, he was just Ollie. He didn't have a label of a diagnosis, but they knew how to help him.
Yeah.
And then going to secondary school, there wasn't that help, there wasn't that support. And he just found it overwhelming, and he would want to get out of a class, so he would go AWOL because he felt really uncomfortable. And so school just lost the enamor that it did have when he was younger.
It's a bit of a go-to. Like I've got ADHD, and I know with people with these crazy brains, if we struggle, sometimes we revert to being the class clown, you know, or especially with lads, it could be showing what's classed as naughty behaviour. And it's actually, I'm not understanding what's in front of me.
Yeah.
So I go to something I do understand.
Yes.
And I'm definitely getting from, you know, like our previous conversation, that was Ollie's go-to when he was just struggling.
That's it. And it's funny you saying about the class clown. We thought he absolutely hated school because he'd come in, and where he'd been masking all day and being the class clown, everyone, all the kids loved Ollie.
Yeah.
He just came in and he was just exhausted.
Yeah.
He'd go and close the curtains and just have some quiet time in his room because he needed that time to recharge.
Because it's when you are neurodiverse and you are trying to conform, it is tiring because it doesn't necessarily come natural.
Yes.
So then when you can just like, oh, okay, I can let my brain just relax now.
Yeah.
So like I can identify with that as well.
Totally. He'd have to come in, I'd have to give him snacks and a drink straight away. He'd need that quiet time. Sometimes he'd even just get straight into bed.
Yeah. So going on to Ollie's diagnosis of autism, how did that present itself? Like, what made them decide for him to see an educational psychologist?
I think what they would have classified it as was his behaviour. So he was getting himself into trouble because he was struggling to actually concentrate in class and stay focused, and wanting to leave the class, getting quite upset as well and overwhelmed, and wanting to visit the Star Centre a lot, which was a place you could go for just a sort of, I suppose, a calmer environment.
Yeah.
They were also, I suppose, hearing from us as parents saying that we were concerned away from school what was happening, because his mental health really wasn't great at all. He had very low self-esteem. And
so it was 14 months, wasn't it?
yeah, and in that 14 months it escalated really very quickly. And within that time he was struggling, and more things were happening, I guess, that were a concern. And so yeah, the diagnosis came very quickly.
Like I know, because Dec was on the autistic spectrum, and I know that through the downsides of having autism, they normally have some sort of crazy superpower with something. Like Declan's was cars.
Yes.
And he knew everything about them. Did Ollie have a topic that he just knew everything about?
So he would change.
Raw.
Yeah, he would change quite often as he grew up. Like he did most sports, but he never stuck to one.
Yeah.
But he did love most of all his bike and pulling wheelies. Yeah. And that came over wrecking probably 2 bikes along the way because
were they like
weren't
BMX bikes, you know, were they kind of more stunt bikes?
Well, they were mountain bikes to start with, and he broke those. So then he actually had to get a fit for purpose bike. It was called the Bomber. And he spent ages like picking, once he had the money from gifts for Christmas and birthday
Yeah.
and things. Selecting what colour it was going to be. He had a camouflage one with green, quite a bright green sort of spokes and pedals. He really thought through everything on that bike and absolutely loved it.
And did he do stunts on it? Like, what kind of stuff did he do?
Wheelies generally.
The main thing was wheelies.
Wheelies and cycling with sort of like no hands,
I never
worryingly.
managed to do that.
Well, his
I
friends
used to
would always
try,
get
but I
frustrated
couldn't.
because they wanted to do it as well, and they were
Yeah.
like, but he would persevere. And, you know, neighbours remember him up and down our road here doing
Yeah.
it until he had it absolutely perfect. And he would do that. It was as if, he couldn't switch off until he could get it anything perfect.
Yeah. And that, like I said, that can be a benefit to having autism. If you have something you're interested in, you can
Yes.
go hyper-focused on it.
Yeah. He loved his Xbox as well. That had always been a big draw to him.
Yeah.
And in some ways, especially through sort of lockdown and things, it was nice because you knew he was communicating with his friends and things.
Yeah.
But yes, he would want to. I think from quite a young age, we can remember Fortnite was probably the first thing he played.
Yeah.
And remember catching him in the middle of the night. He'd got himself up because he'd found out that in America or something, there was somewhere it was playing at a different time of the day, and he'd worked out that if he actually played at that time, he could get more points up. And yeah, you're right. He would know everything inside and out about
It is. It's a little superpower.
those games.
This is it. I think quite often when someone's diagnosed with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, there's a huge focus on the negatives that brings, you know, especially academically, because it can really affect your education. But there's some things that make you thrive. And obviously that was the case with Olly, with those things.
That's very true. I think he always loved sort of like to look his best. He always loved changing his hair. Yeah, he was a wonder. He was just so exciting to be around.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved his company. If we drove anywhere, it was hilarious because he knew that if he played one of his songs first, I'd say, no, that's just turn that off. That's not nice. And then he would then play something I liked. It was almost this little deal that was going on.
Yeah.
But even from a young age, his sister realised this. Even though he was the younger sibling, he always sat in the front.
Really?
Always sat in the
So why
front.
was that then? How did he manage to
we
ride shotgun every day?
We don't know, but we can look back now and actually see he did actually rule our household because you just knew if you went along with the way he wanted to do it, that life was happier and we all jogged along better.
Yeah.
But yeah, he
So
really
what
was.
was the sibling relationship like then, besides your daughter having to always sit in the back of the car?
They were funny together, they really were. But I think she quite liked being out of the spotlight.
Yeah.
She was quieter, and so she quite liked that he did. But she was older. She was 3 years older than him, so they were wonderful together. You know, she always looked after him. She's very doting. As when he first came home and he was a baby, and she always helped me looking after him, which was amazing. But I think then when he was struggling at secondary school, again, she was at the school, but older, she could always be somebody he could go and talk to and looked out for him.
So after his diagnosis of autism, did things get easier at school?
It's hard to say because he got the diagnosis in the November and then died in the January.
Right.
So we
it
really
was
had
very short amount of time.
a very short amount of time. But even on the day that it happened, Stuart and I were talking to him, and it was as if he kind of had accepted it, and he did feel calmer and better for that knowledge, because he'd always said to me, latterly, I know I'm autistic, but I don't need to go to a special school.
And that's, I think, a key thing, isn't it? And I think, although you don't want to be labelled, once you do know, it helps you understand why you do what you do, why your brain behaves the way it does. And when you accept that you can only change it to a point, it is almost a bit of a relief.
Yes, yeah, I can see that. Because there were just things that he needed pointing out to him where perhaps he just didn't understand the danger in things, didn't have any fear.
And that can be social etiquette, can't it? I know understanding why people are doing what they're doing. And I think that's, brings us to almost the beginning of the not great chapter in your book, where Olly's vulnerability made him easy prey. So are you okay if we kind of start discussing that, and you can try to paint a picture as to how this happened?
I think you can track it back to almost him getting a mobile phone, and so that was the last year of primary school. Then it leads into him feeling different, that led on to the diagnosis of autism spectrum. The smartphone and its addiction, and seeing things that he shouldn't have seen online, potentially meeting people that he wouldn't have normally met in day-to-day life. His life and the life, I guess, of our young people these days are nothing like the childhoods that we would have had. It was far simpler for us than for them. And if you're already struggling a bit with understanding the reading of people and who is your real friend and who isn't, add into that then online. We were going through COVID, so things were so different then. He wasn't in school, for example. He wasn't seeing the people he would normally have seen. And it just led him into being aligned to a group of people that were older than him, that didn't care about him and really were using him.
So was it he literally met them via social media?
That I will never know, in honesty. I think he started to, with his bike, travel away from our area. And I could keep an eye on that because I could see on location where he was. But I think he was meeting people. For example, with his love of the bikes, there was a group that he was part of that he would have then met kids that he wouldn't normally have met. So because he kept a lot of what happened to himself and only really revealed when he had to his social worker, for example, our knowledge of that time's really patchy. But what we do know is that he was asked to do a job that took him up to London. And so he caught a train on his own.
Because you live in Reading, so that's quite a distance.
Yeah, and I came across it because I track him and I could see the location moving really fast. I thought, oh my God. I phoned his dad, and so Stuart was trying to kind of talk him around and get him back, which we did do. We didn't know what happened that day. We found out later that he was told to do a job, but it was a setup. What that meant was that he then owed that gang for whatever. And so the next thing we knew, and that it came into our world, was because his bike was stolen. And again, he was set up. They stole his bike. And then at that point, he confided in his auntie because he was worried about talking to us about it. But those two things then flagged to us. We had to keep him in. And also that he then had a social worker to
tell me, how did a social worker get involved? What?
I think first of all it started with a family worker because of at school they were picking up on him not being settled and not being happy. But then when it escalated, that there was a concern about criminal exploitation. That's when we got our lovely Forrest. And Olly trusted Forrest and we trusted Forrest, and that's where we started to gain the awful truth about what happened to Olly. And we kept him in for his safety then.
Yeah, because when you say criminal exploitation, for a lot of people, they might never have even heard of that before. So could you explain what that term actually means?
So for us, it meant that Olly was being tasked jobs to do. Now, either he was having to deliver potentially what would have been drugs to different locations, or told to do things that could involve violence. As I said, we didn't know very much about it. We sadly know a lot more about it, and it is so common. And as you were saying, it is the vulnerable children that they pick off to exploit to do this work. And once Olly was on the back foot that he owed them, he really didn't have a choice. They sent a picture of our front door, which gave the warning that they knew where we lived.
So you've got a 13-year-old boy who has now...
At that point, he was 12.
Has now somehow got, in his mind, the responsibility of his whole family on his shoulders because these people know where he lives.
Yeah, exactly. So for him, and how we could pick up on that was he really couldn't sleep. He was constantly on his phone. His world became very small because for his own safety, we didn't want him out. He became excluded from school because as part of his diagnosis, his compass around what was right and wrong was very strong. So time and time again, he'd get into trouble at school where he would defend his friends.
And during this time, when the gang were grooming him, because let's face it, that is what happened. He was groomed by a gang.
Yeah.
Were his childhood friends still around, or did he start backing away from them?
He wasn't seeing them at school because he wasn't in school. He really was backing away from them. I think probably contact would have carried on the Xbox, but they probably wouldn't have seen him so much face to face. So he was in this kind of world that wasn't normal. I mean, he was desperate to get back into school and to be back with his friends, but it had gone too far with that school, so he was never going to go back to there. We were looking for somewhere else for him to go to school.
Like where, or did you ever find out what the initial criminal activity kind of draw was? You know, how they first got him?
I think for Olly, he was a very bright boy. He always liked the idea of having his own businesses. He used to say, I'm going to be a property manager. It did change a lot. He wanted to be a barber at one point, then he wanted to be in property. But he loved the idea of making money.
Yeah.
So I think for him, the thought that he could have a job, be making money, he would have seen it. That would have been the appeal.
So were they paying him then to do these drop-offs, to your knowledge?
I imagine, but I never found any evidence of that in our house, in his bedroom. So it's very hard to say.
Yeah. And that must be hard, that there was this whole bit of your son's life.
Really hard.
That you don't really know much about. And
because your job as parents is to protect your children, and it's just that is a horror, because I think for Stuart and and myself, we just felt like we couldn't control the situation. We literally were firefighting. We'd just get past one thing and then it would move on to something else that was more serious. We probably alienated ourselves in the way that I didn't want to tell my friends potentially what was happening, because it was that awful feeling of that we'd let him down. How would we got into this situation?
But I think that it's a lot harder being a parent now, because when we were younger, we knew all our friends' parents because we had to go and knock on the door.
That's it.
You know, it was a lot harder to keep things from your parents. Whereas now, you know, it must be really hard to keep a track on, you know, because it's not just phones. Like you said, they communicate via PlayStations. You know, there is so many ways.
That's it.
And you can't be present 24/7.
No. And I think it wasn't until after we'd kind of lost Olly and looking back to some of the things where he was struggling, I can now understand that he was seeing far too much on his phone that was leading him down the wrong path mentally, but also it was exploiting him.
And that is worrying, isn't it? That you would never have allowed these people into your home.
No, I know.
Yet they were able to, because these are adults as well, not just children, but they're able to, in a sense, enter your home, go up to your son's bedroom and have a full-blown conversation about what they want him to do with you, having absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
And that is the dark side of what social media can do.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know Olly got a girlfriend at one point.
Yeah, just in that final year, there was an on-off kind of relationship with a girl. We felt he was too young to be in that situation, but he really cared about her. And so it was sort of, I suppose, a constant during that time. She was.
Because she came into your home, didn't she? She was a part of Olly's life.
She always kept a bit of a distance from us, to be honest with you. But yes, she was a part of his life. I think probably the person he was seeing the most of. But then between the Christmas and New Year, they'd split up. I never got to the bottom of why. But then that led into the path of what happened, of her wanting to get back at him, and then lured him out of our house to whatever happening.
And in your words, you know, and take your time, what actually happened? Because I know that it's been in the media and, you know, things can be twisted, misinterpreted, but this is in your voice.
I think after it happened, Stuart and I were thinking, why? And it's not until you go through the process of the court and the police needing to do what they need to do that you then see the evidence. And what is so shocking and abhorrent is in that build-up to Christmas and during the Christmas New Year's period, children were scheming and plotting and planning behind his back over what they felt was an injustice of something he had done online. What he had done online was just trying to protect a younger child who'd been patterned. So
can I just ask, what does pattern mean? Because this is a whole other language.
Yeah, and it was for us too.
Yeah, so what does that mean?
So what it means is that you are filmed doing something which can be used against you. Generally, you're filmed doing something that is belittling to you, so that you're humiliated, and it's filmed because you are then blackmailed because with the threat that it will be shared with other people.
So people were plotting. Someone had done this to someone Olly knew.
That's it. So Olly was trying to protect him by sharing it with his older brother.
Yeah.
What that led to was these boys feeling like Olly was a snitch, a grass, a snake, and they wanted some form of retaliation against what he had done. Did
something happen to these boys then on the back of Olly telling?
No, nothing ever happened to them.
It was just purely that Olly
fear.
Spoke up, that was all.
Yeah, it was their fear of what potentially could happen.
Right.
If the older brother did do something to them. But they started, and this is where we saw through the evidence, their anger and the violence. It just escalated so fast. There was nothing. It went across 11 different platforms with different children getting involved, and there was nobody there online to calm the situation down.
Because let's face it, these are kids.
And that's what's
so
shocking.
There's not going to be a voice of reason.
No.
These are children.
What's so frustrating though is if it was in the real world, if they had been stood somewhere, someone would have overheard and someone would have said, "What are you talking about? What are you doing?" But it didn't. So they're allowed to, throughout the night, building up this anger, worse and worse, about what they were going to do to Olly. And what is so shocking and abhorrent is what they said they were going to do, they actually did it.
And that's the scary thing is, you know, threats have been made when we were kids. You know, "Oh, I'm going to kill you you know, and it is just a throwaway threat.
Yeah,
But this wasn't a throwaway threat.
it
And
wasn't.
this is the scary thing, that these children, because this is what I'm struggling with, is the fact that these are kids, that were planning this, that they had access to the weapons, that they had this vocabulary that is gangster.
Gangster, yeah.
And I'm struggling to understand that. And I think a lot of parents will be, because that's not what we're used to. And that isn't the norm.
No. And I think what makes us the saddest is it is to our children. That is what's so shocking.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think that's what's made us do now what we do with Olly's work is just children shouldn't be having to live like this.
No, it's the one time, because we've all been kids, and it should be that beautiful time that we are being educated, we're learning who we are in a safe environment.
Yes.
You know, with our peers and with our family, you know, keeping us safe, where we're discovering what we like, what we don't like. Yet, down to social media, it's like I said before, strangers can come into your house, go into your child's bedroom, and override what the foundations you're trying to set of, you know, this is where, you know, becoming a responsible teenager, you know,
Yeah.
you're trying to, you know, to promote, you know, positivity, and these strangers have a louder voice than you because they're on the mobile phone.
Definitely. I think our children have become so desensitised. You know, what we've got to remember is that when we give them smartphones, phones, they instantly have a computer in their pocket that they can Google anything. And we put in the protections around what we thought was the right thing to do with our Wi-Fi. But children and young people, it's their world. They understand
they know more
it.
than we do.
They can
for
bypass
hacking
anything.
Exactly.
So you currently you can't protect your children online, and that's why we feel really strongly. Just don't give them a phone, not till they're older.
Yeah.
And we've worked with other bereaved parents to make sure that the Online Safety Act's been passed and that there is now Ofcom there. Their aim is to police what's happening.
Because that needs to be what happens. Because do you feel, in your opinion, that if there hadn't have been access to smartphones, this would have happened? Do you think these perpetrators would have still found a way? Or do you think it's what they saw, the fact that they were able to glamorise what their plans were? You know, what's your opinion
It is
on
exactly that. I think without the phones, without that kind of online knowledge, then it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened, and it shouldn't be happening. We need to, as quickly as we can. Number one is for parents to be aware. So when if they're going to give their children a phone, that they need to know these are the dangers. Are you seriously going to give that child a phone?
Yeah. So, sorry, I just need to take a minute.
Yeah.
Bless you. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah, we were going to talk
it's
about the
hard.
day, weren't we? And then,
Yeah. This is it. I want to go back to that day, because there was a key thing you said on that interview that I don't want to tell you to say it. I'm hoping you'll authentically say it. Right. So the day that ended up being the day that changed everything. I'm sure you remember what you were wearing. Like, I know that when your world changes, you remember some of the smallest details.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything that sticks out with you?
I think Stuart and I both said afterwards that we had an awful feeling when he went out that afternoon, and we shouldn't have had, really, because he was meeting somebody we knew, and they were just going over the road into the Parkland area.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, because we're filming this outside your house, literally your house is one side, the park is the other. So he was 200 yards away.
That's exactly it. But we both had this niggling feeling, and I think when the doorbell was knocked really loudly, it was probably 15 minutes after he'd been out, 15, 20 minutes. I thought, oh, they're back. They're back early. That's what I thought. And I think the horror then to see somebody, a boy that we knew, who was the same age as our daughter, telling me what had happened. He just said, Olly's been stabbed. And I just remember screaming, Olly's been stabbed. It was just that thought of how can that have happened? And the instant, the shock and the horror that fills you. But I just remember screaming up to Olly's dad, Stuart, and to his sister was upstairs as well, and just screaming what had happened. And they both flew down the stairs, and Stuart ran over without even putting his shoes on. So he got to Olly first. But on running over there, and we were there literally within minutes, but seeing poor Olly just lying there, lifeless, we just knew he'd gone straight away. And it's hard to even recollect and take that back to minutes before him being in our house. And we actually had a little moment upstairs as he was getting ready to go, because the plan kept changing. One minute he was going, then he wasn't going. And
to your knowledge, he was just going
to meet the girl.
To meet his ex-girlfriend.
That was it. But he was lying on his bed and he was looking at his phone, and I sat on the bed and I just said, oh, you're ever so good looking, you know. And he even from looking at me and goes, well, take a picture then. And I said, I can't, I haven't got my phone with me. And he said, a mental picture. And that is so poignant in my mind, because I can see him now. And we laughed and I snuggled into his neck, and it was just that feeling of how can you go from that and him being quite upbeat and wanting to go over there to then he's dead. And you now know that those children were conspiring and full of anger, full of hatred, planning, plotting, taking a weapon with them. And they just did it. And you know what? They did it and they fled off the scene. The girl was seen looking back and laughing.
Oh my goodness.
The boys were on an e-scooter. In the time it took us to get over to the field, they were already down in Caversham. And you know this because the police have got all the CCTV, and so you know all the timings. But that's how quickly they were away.
Not showing any remorse.
No remorse. One was overheard saying he was calling his uncle, who was a lawyer or a solicitor. And that just, it beggars belief. It's almost that thought of that they were that aware what to do after what they had done. There was footage of that. We know that later that night they met up. The boys, the clothes that he was wearing, he discarded them. The police found them.
And can we just remember that these are 13 and 14-year-olds with all this knowledge? Like, we're not talking about 18, 20-year-olds. We're talking about 13 and 14-year-olds that were using gang lingo, carrying weapons, and even knew or thought they knew how to hide not a petty crime, but a murder.
Yeah, it does. It beggars belief. Totally. And we're just left afterwards here in completely shock, no comprehension of the world that Olly had been living in. How horrifically scary was it for him? And he tried to protect us, and that's just heartbreaking. We should have been protecting him. I look back on it and there were little things he did say that I thought he was being dramatic. But now knowing the full picture, he was trying to tell me of the danger that there was. And I just didn't believe it. I couldn't comprehend it. Now knowing that the dangers that there are, I see the world so differently, and it's the same for the whole of our family. We now spot those young children who are drug running. You see them with the backpacks on.
Can you give an example of something that Olly said to you that you thought was him being dramatic?
So we were just up at our local parade of shops, and he took his phone out and put it in the side. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Someone might try and steal it, take it from me."
So he put it in the side of your car?
In the car, in the little pocket, yeah. I said, "Don't be ridiculous, this is the top shops." I said, "You're with me, what's going to happen?" He said, "That wouldn't change anything." Mm-hmm. And I thought, no. But now I realised that the boy that did it to Olly, he had done just that, an armed robbery in our local community back in the September time. He stole trainers at that point from an older boy.
So Olly knew the kind of things, and that even having a parent now wouldn't change a thing, because
no.
What I'm getting from what we've spoken about before recording this is these teenagers, very young teenagers, have zero respect for adults.
Yeah, that's
because the culture that they're in, adults, police.
That's very true. Teachers. Nothing. Yeah, I don't think they had any respect for life, for any form of authority. They couldn't have had any fear themselves.
No.
This was a Sunday afternoon at 3:26. Olly left our house.
Isn't it crazy?
By 3:46, he was dead.
Do you know what? Dec died at 3:45 in the afternoon.
Oh my
but on a Saturday.
God. Oh my God.
But it's weird how you know the exact time.
You do, because we could see that from sort of CCTV of Olly leaving from a doorbell footage to the time that the call was made, the 999 call. And I remember once thinking, that's actually 13 minutes, and that's 13 minutes. He was 13 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, to your knowledge, Olly was going to meet an ex-girlfriend. You know, who knows what he was hoping for, but to him it was a positive. He went out to meet her, and it wasn't just her.
No. So he would have been confronted quite quickly that she was with the boy that actually knocked on our front door. He would have known by seeing that boy that there was something to worry about.
Okay, so these boys were known to be trouble in the area then?
That boy that was with the girl was known in our area to be trouble. Yeah. So Olly would have feared him and would have, I think, thought. However, friends of ours saw Olly with the boy and the girl minutes before it happened, and he said hello and he seemed upbeat. Okay.
So poor Olly had no idea.
He didn't until
what they were about to do.
Literally he would have then walked past where now his memorial tree and bench are. He'd have started to go down the little path, and that's when he would have been confronted at them coming up with speed on an e-scooter. And as such, he was kind of trapped then. He was in that little corridor with the trees either side, and they're coming up. And they want to argue and have a fight about what he had done, get him to admit. And Olly wouldn't back down and he wouldn't apologise. He was coming off okay in the fight, the better, the boy said, than he was. This was the older boy. But then the younger boy said afterwards he saw red. He had a knife with him. And he lunged over and he stabbed Olly in the back, and then he stabbed Olly in the chest. And those two wounds were enough to kill Olly because of where they penetrated. He didn't stand a chance. And there were so many things afterwards that you think if he could have been saved, he would have, because the fact that a cardiac nurse was the first person to find him, an off-duty doctor was jogging past and asked if they could help. The ambulance crew were here very quickly, but he wasn't going to survive those injuries.
And I want you to just, because that's what you've just described is traumatic to hear. But this isn't a story, this is your life. This is what you've had to endure.
I know.
And I can't even begin to imagine the trauma that has most probably left you with.
It's just that feeling of seeing him so lifeless lying there. And it's mum thoughts that come into your mind. Oh, his slider's fallen off, I should put that back. Oh, his t-shirt's come up, I want to pull that down. Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I can identify with, because to you, you have loved that body, not just that spirit. You've loved that body.
And looked after them.
For all those years.
Yeah.
And even though you know that their spirit's no longer in their body, that's the body you know. And you want to continue looking after that for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah. And it was even down to things like the ambulance crew, they did everything they could possibly. But after a while, you know that they're not there anymore, and you just thought...
You feel it in yourself,
you thought, like, just leave him alone now.
Do you know what? I can relate to that, because when the paramedic turned up, the day it happened with Declan, Dec was wearing one of his favourite T-shirts that he got from the weekend, was it called Out of Hours tour?
Yeah.
That we'd been to a few months beforehand, and he cut through it to put on the defib. And I knew Declan's spirit had gone.
Yeah.
And it was like, please don't do that to his body, because I knew he wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And I just wanted his body to be left alone.
Yes, same
so
feeling.
I can understand that feeling that you continue being that lioness. And that's exactly, I use the term lioness because that's how they are in the wild. Even when their children died, the lioness is still so protective.
Yeah.
And it's an instinct in you.
That's interesting you saying that, because quite quickly I knew my job was to watch over what was happening with Ollie, and I wouldn't be distracted from that. I was asked why he was in the field and who he'd been meeting. So I had to phone the girl's mother and ask what her address was.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, what's that pouch of tobacco doing over there? That looks a bit random. That's evidence. Quite quickly, you're thinking of how you're going to find out what has happened here. You want justice for what's happened.
And the very platform they used to plan Ollie's murder is also the way that they were caught.
Very true.
The irony there.
It's very true, because our daughter put out a plea to all the young people to say, anybody who knows anything about what's happened to my brother, please let me know. And you know what? Those children, they wanted justice for Ollie because they came forward and they gave any information. And that next morning, by 2:45, we had an update, and 5 children have been brought into custody. So those names, all the children knew who it was. And the reason they knew was Ollie, it just literally happened to Ollie, and it was instantly on social media. So children all knew straight away, and that I would never have understood how we could be walking away from having to say goodbye to Ollie at the back of an ambulance, and children across the world knew what had happened to Ollie. But you're right that the evidence It wasn't easy to get. The right people were brought into custody instantly, but to actually for the police to have enough evidence to get the convictions of murder for the 2 boys, manslaughter for the girl, they had to drill in. I think they seized something like 47 devices, interviewed 300 children. It's just, it does beg a belief the amount of work that the police had to do to actually get those convictions.
But in a way, these 3 perpetrators, because that's what they are, they boasted,
Tried to
about what
delete
they had
things
done.
as well.
And in doing all of that, in many ways they helped the conviction because they were so arrogant about what they had done.
Yeah, they even said, didn't they, things like, oh, it's the worst thing I could have... I think one said that they'd seen red. It's the worst thing they could have ever done. It's just, you're right. They did. They spelt it out quite clearly of their involvement and trying to cover their tracks, telling each other to delete things.
But how brave are the kids, including your daughter?
They must have been really scared.
Because they must have been scared of repercussions.
Oh, definitely.
So
they
it
really
was so
were.
brave of them as well to speak up.
Yeah. I think in our community, Olly's so loved and remembered, but it was bigger than that. And we've got a lovely little clip called Best Friend Calling, which is like a lovely little video which we showed at Olly's funeral. And I still, to this day, if I go into a school assembly, I finish with Best Friend Calling, because we still don't know who it was, but a child went onto social media, got videos of Olly, clips of Olly, recorded voice notes from friends and voice notes from children who didn't even know him. But it's beautiful. It's just, they'll say, rest in peace, Olly. I didn't know you, but... And it's just, that's the good of social media. That's the good, that children cared that much and they wanted justice for him and they got justice for him, and that he will be remembered. Because you do have to see the black and the white. You can't portray all social media as bad.
No, and that's it. Although, these people that murdered Olly were children and they were able to plan it via social media, they are in the minority. And that is not normal behaviour.
That's key to remember.
Yeah.
It really is
There
key.
are still, the majority of children wouldn't dream of doing anything like that.
No, who were kind.
Yeah.
And I think, those children did what they did that day, but they will have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And that's not going to be easy.
So what has happened to them? Because I know that was 5 years ago. What has happened to those children?
It's hard to answer it in lots of ways, only just because I think for us, we've almost pushed them to one side in our minds to be able to cope, because it's just too much to take on what they've done.
Factually where they are?
I think it would be fair to say that the girl's been released because she only got 5 years and so only had to serve 2.5 years, and so she'll be coming off licence in January. The boys got 13 and 12 years, so life sentences for them. And they're away somewhere in secure accommodation / a young offenders type institution. I think it was that night when we got the update that it was children that had been brought into custody that everything just froze for me for a minute, that I just thought, these are children who should be in bed.
Yeah.
These are children with parents having to live with that their children have been brought into custody. And I think I've always thought, I've always had, and Stuart and I have both always said, we don't blame the parents, because a lot of the time that's what people say, oh, it's the parents. Do you know what? Parents don't know what is going on in their children's lives, because so much of it happens online these days.
And you're right. The instinct is to blame the
There's
parents.
always a blame. Yeah.
It must be the upbringing, the parents.
And we couldn't see that that was the case.
And I think that shows such grace on your part. That you're not jumping to that.
They've lost. All right, they haven't lost the lives of their children, but they have lost the life that they would have had with those children.
But what a testimony to you and your husband as human beings, that you can see that and you even have empathy for these parents. That's incredible.
Do you know what? I think we got a lot of support because we were the parents of the victim. So we have family liaison officers. We had a special family room in the court. We had sympathy from a lot of people. Can you imagine being the parent of the child that does something like that? How hard would that be to live with? And I do understand that. But I just can't dwell on it too long, if that makes sense.
And also, this is your story today.
Yes.
And they do still get to see their children.
Yeah.
And you had to come home to your home that's only 200 yards away.
Without him. Without him. And I think it's that leaving him. I think you will understand this feeling. It's leaving him when everything inside you is saying, no, I need to stay with him. He can't go on his own off in this ambulance.
Because that was a key thing when we spoke earlier, but for very different reasons. I wasn't allowed to go with Dec. The police were there because it happened out in public. The police were involved. I had to be interviewed. And because the ambulance was going to take Dec straight to the mortuary, I wasn't allowed to go. Even though I got in the ambulance, and then they had to say, no, like, you can't come. And then it was a bank holiday. So because the police had to work with the hospital for the first time I could then see Declan, that happened on the Saturday, like I said, 3:45. It wasn't until the Tuesday that I got to see him. And I know for you, you weren't allowed to go because Olly's body was classed as evidence.
Yeah, that's it. So even when we said goodbye to him in the ambulance, we weren't allowed to touch him. And that, you naturally want to hold his hand or give him a kiss or that human touch. And no, we never got that. But it makes sense, of course. There was a case, there was going to be a trial, there was going to be a jury, of course. But we didn't get to see Olly for a good 2.5 weeks by the time he came back from the autopsy. For me, it was just to see him again, because I've missed him, just to see him.
And again, it is, isn't it? Like, I don't know about you, but if someone had said to me before I lost Dec that I would want to hold the hand of a dead body, I would have been like, whoa, no, that's scary. But
you do.
Oh my goodness, it's so different, isn't it? When it's the person you love, you just want to see them as you remember them, and their body is how you remember them. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And you do get some lovely moments where you see, and actually our family liaison officers, they were wonderful. They came in because we'd been with him for quite a while, and I think they were just checking we were okay. But you know what one of them said? He's ever so tall, isn't he? And I just went, it's almost like bristling. Oh, because he was always really lovely and tall. And the other one said, oh my God, he's got beautiful long eyelashes. And do you know what, in those two comments, filled my heart again, back up with joy and pride, because he was our beautiful boy.
And that's another key thing. You will always be Olly's mum, and you will always carry the pride of being his mum.
Yeah. You think you've lost that, but then you do learn that along the way, that you'll always be their mum. And that's something they can't ever take from you, because it does feel like a lot has been taken. Yeah. And you just clamour on to what you can keep. But I just remember on seeing him for the first time, that beauty of him, but then the differences were he was so cold, and it's that realisation you'll never see his eyes again because his eyes are closed, so you can't see his eyes. And so it's the loss.
How would you say that loss has changed you?
I'm not the same person I was. I had to change because I think I died with Ollie, I think, that day.
I understand that. And I'm sure that any parent that's lost a child that's listening to this right now, their heart has sank at you saying that, because we can identify with that, because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah,
Well, that's exactly
you have to die. And so what's left is that then you realise that there is still life to live for the reason that you're still a mum and you're still a daughter and you're still a wife. And, you know, there's all those reasons why. And for us, it's been Ollie's work. So you do need to keep moving forward. But I think the pain stays the same, but you have to get stronger at managing it. You have to be able to carry on, you just need to be able to manage the pain.
But there's one part of your grief which I can't identify with. The fact that there is categorically people to blame for Ollie not being here. Like with me, yes, there was negligence, but there's not key people there or a key situation that if that hadn't have happened, Declan would still be here. Whereas you know that these individuals, you know, you'd be well within your rights to really be blaming them. So on top of your grief, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate knowing that Ollie's not here at the hand of someone?
I don't know how I do, in honesty, but I guess I've never been an outright angry person, so I've always tended to take things in, and I probably hold that trauma actually inside me more because I don't vocalise how angry I am about that and what they've taken.
Through what we've been speaking about previously, you have got health issues now.
Yeah, I do. And I think it took a while for me to realise, but I have to now wear a mouth guard because I was grinding my teeth at night and clamping my jaw.
So grief can manifest itself in so many ways.
My tummy aches and bloats up, and I think I held a lot of my emotion in my stomach, and I think that's why that is. I think, you know, I've had to be aware of my blood pressure. I've got mild hypertension, and it's all these things that are kind of saying on the face of it I'm coping, but inside my mind and my body are just crying out of the pain that I'm living with every day.
And I know you mentioned Ollie's work and that you're finding that as your coping strategy.
Yeah.
So when you say Ollie's work,
what does it mean?
Even just Ollie's work just sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it got its name somewhere along the line, but it's all happened very organically without us really thinking it through. Stuart started, first of all, campaigning with a good friend of ours, Katie, and it was what became our relationship with the bereaved families for online safety. We were united by Baroness Beban Kidron of the House of Lords. She was on the online safety committee at the point before it was an act. And she united us all as parents because we all had equally tragic, horrific stories about the harm that our children have come to online. So together, actually, having that time has helped us to continue with our campaigning around online harm, build relationships with other bereaved parents around anti-knife crime and relationships with the Benkin Seller Trust. But also the fact that Ollie's diagnosis did make him so vulnerable to what happened to him. And they do say that there is a higher level of perpetrators of crime and victims of crime who are neurodivergent.
Yeah. And these are all facts.
Yeah.
So exploring each one of them. You've got the online safety. I know one of your big things that you're trying to do is smartphones.
Smartphone free, yes.
Up to, remind me, what age? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think because we can see what happened with Ollie on getting the phone and what is happening now online, which we weren't aware of, it's just to protect young children as long as possible. Give them that childhood that we had that was really quite innocent, naive,
That's
outdoors.
Keeping their innocence.
Yeah, it's just to keep that bit longer. So I think holding off giving them something that's so highly addictive. We see as adults how highly addictive our phones are, how we like getting likes, how we like
And like you
posting
said,
things.
it's addictive. And if you can speak out to other parents right now, they have a child, maybe late primary school, saying, but
Begging for a phone.
what would your message be?
See the danger, see the harm. I'm one of a massive group of bereaved parents who've lost our children because of what they have seen or what has happened to them online.
And that's the thing, these aren't just stories, these are real people, these are real lives that have been taken.
Yeah. So do hold off.
And it can happen to you. You know, people thinking, oh, well, it won't happen to me. It can happen to anyone because social media, let's face it, doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter the colour of your skin, the age you are, if you've got a disability, what your sexual orientation is.
Nothing. No, exactly. Yeah. So I think we just say hold off really, as long as you can, giving your child a smartphone, letting them to go onto social media. Ideally, you'd be thinking about what can you start doing at 18? Drinking, all these things that
They're
are
classed
highly
as risks and addictive, yes.
So then your smartphone and your online and your social media, that should be at the same point, I think, 18, because then you've got a chance of having a really fantastic childhood, building up that kind of strength of character before you start seeing.
All those influences that aren't always positive.
And also the hope that the Online Safety Act and its job with getting Ofcom to police what's actually out there, it's giving it time to actually start policing so that when they start going on it, it's going to be a safer environment for them.
So then the next one was Benkin's Trust and knife crime.
Yeah, because that's something that I think a lot of parents do think that knives, it's inner city problem, gangs, it's kind of got a criteria behind it of who's likely to be in a gang. I think in what happened in the exploitation of Olly is that it can happen to any child, and the chances are the more vulnerable they are for whatever reason, it's more likely to happen to them because they'll get picked off. So the Banking Seller Trust do a lot of training in their exhibitions of young people. They also do online training for parents and carers, which is absolutely amazing.
And you're playing a part in that, aren't you? You and your husband.
Definitely. And I think on their website, you've got Olly's story. We've been on podcasts with them. And what we would love to do is get our own exhibition in the Thames Valley. That is what we're really pushing for. And that's why we're setting up the Olly Stephens Trust, because we want to fundraise to get it to our local area and give those children the chance to get that education around choices and consequences.
Because that's it, there is consequences, and that's what the children need to realise. And those consequences can affect the rest of their lives.
The children that did this to Olly, I don't think they had any idea of what the consequences were. And looking back, Olly had no education around that all through school. So by the time he was 13, he'd not had anything at all. Whereas I do think now, definitely locally, I see it that you've got mentors coming in and in their schools. There are people doing assemblies that have got lived crime, lived experience. People like me going in as a mum.
So you go into schools as well?
This is a new thing that we've just started to do, secondary schools, doing assemblies, talking about Olly's story, talking about the other children that we know about that have lost their lives through online harm, and just trying to give them some hope for the future that the Online Safety Act is now live. And
because there is going to be a lot of children out there that are scared.
Yeah. And that's one of the big worries about with children carrying knives is that they think more children are than are because they're seeing it all the time. on their social media, and they're desensitized and they're thinking that it's the norm, and it really isn't. It's a very, very small percentage you would think about carrying a knife.
And then I know the third thing you mentioned was the vulnerability of neurodiverse children, young adults. So what are you doing in regards to that?
I think any time that we've got the chance to, we're campaigning around it. We're also trying to raise that awareness that for the parents of children who are neurodiverse, to sort of make them aware of how highly addictive the platforms are and how dangerous they are.
Together. You know, they're three topics, but they all knit in.
It was all the things that
together,
affected Olly.
Yeah.
It is all the things that affected him. And I think we've just tried to fundraise as well all the time we've been doing this, and help specific charities that have helped us. But now's the time to actually hopefully get our own exhibition, and within that tell Ben Kinsella's story, but also I'm hoping Olly's story, because it's very relevant to what's happening now.
And I will be making sure that everything we've mentioned, all the support that's out there will be tagged into this, so other parents can easily find advice and support.
That's it, because we have got some web pages now that we've been helped to get set up. Thank you.
Also, you've given me something.
Oh, yes.
And I want to discuss this. I want to end on this smiley, beautiful, for anyone that's listening to the podcast as opposed to watching on YouTube. You gave me a beautiful
guardian angel rock with a red heart, because Olly loved the colour red. That's it. That's Reading Kindness Rocks who do that. The idea is that people will either keep them or that they'll take them on their travels and people can find them, and then they come back to Reading Kindness Rocks who are on Facebook and tell them where they found them. But it's sharing Olly's legacy. Anyone can Google Olly Stephens and you'll come up with all the documentaries and things that we've done.
And you've kindly given me two.
Yes.
One to keep and one that's me and Dec are going to place somewhere special.
Fantastic. I love that. Let me know when you do it, promise.
I will. Oh, definitely. And then this beautiful card. And I've got to say, I love the fact you've made Olly, the letters, into this beautiful smiley face.
That's
it's so beautiful.
Olly.
You can't help but smile when you see this.
And do you know what makes that even more special is that we had help with some funding of an alternative provision, so children who struggle in school. And I talked to them about Olly, and they, with the help of Starting Point locally, they came up with that logo.
Oh my goodness, that matters.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
And I love the fact, so I'm going to read out what it says, and it's, your life matters, your potential is limitless, your joy is possible when we stand together. That is so beautiful.
And it is just that whole feeling of Olly had his whole life ahead of him. You just don't know all the wonderful things that he would have done. And the fact that he felt alone and that we weren't standing together to try and protect him, help him, that's what we hope that Olly's work will do.
That's because social media puts a barrier for families. That's no reflection on you guys as a family, because all I'm hearing is such joy and such love.
Such love for him.
That it's none of what happened to Olly is a reflection of you guys as a family. And I love what's gone into this and how every aspect of it means something.
Very personal.
And then you've also given me, and I've seen you've got one on.
Yes. Our little Olly's work armbands, wristbands.
So would you like to read what it says?
Oh gosh, I haven't got my glasses
on.
So
it says, promoting hope
and happiness,
preventing hate
and harm. Do you know what? Our lovely friend Katie, she came up with that strapline. She helps us in our Olly's works, and it just sums it all up, doesn't it?
It does. And again, it's red because of Olly's favourite colour.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that you've shared your story with me, that you've given me two of these beautiful things, not just one, but two. My heart has been very heavy during this conversation because it's, although I've listened to lots of stories, And I don't know if it's because of being neurodiverse myself and knowing in my teenage years how easy it would be to have gone down a path that could have resulted in my life being totally different.
Yeah.
But I just feel very blessed that you have felt safe enough to come into the back of Dec's van, share your story, and not just that chapter as to what happened that the media know about, but the beautiful story of Olly and you and your husband and your daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm just really grateful that you've shared that with us.
Thank you. It is lovely in Dec's van. I really love it.
Thank you.
It's really cool. It is so cool.
If there's been any interference, we are near an airport. It's quite warm, so we needed the doors open.
That's it.
Yeah, this
Oh,
isn't
I've
like
loved
a
it.
high-tech studio. This is what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
It
it's
is in the back of Dec's van.
absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
And if you'd like to join me next week, I will be with Lisa, who lost her son Isaac. Unfortunately, in a way again where social media played a humongous part in it. This time it's a TikTok challenge gone wrong. So that will be aired next Wednesday. This has been a heavy episode, so please take some time to look after yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you. This podcast is in honour of my son Declan, and for anyone out there who's lost someone they love. I see you, I feel you, I hear you, and I hope in some small way this helps you feel a little less alone. Keep your heart safe until next time, and don't forget to follow or subscribe. Your support helps keep this podcast going.